Educator family, thank you so much for tuning in and joining as we look at this very special feature for this week, which speaks to asynchronous and synchronous lesson planning. Of course, this was asked for by a viewer, so I want to thank you so much for making the suggestion whereby I can share this very valuable information with you. To the extent to which we do this may not be so relevant at this time, but educators, let me say to you, there's always time to do the right things. And so while we were on the online platform during the pandemic, in the height of the pandemic, we heard these terms going around, asynchronous and synchronous. We can still utilize them, even though for some of us we have been back full face-to-face classes, physical classes. We can still utilize these principles to help our students to solidify concepts and content that we share with them. So we're moving right into it. When we think about synchronous learning, we know that the classes, it will operate in real time with students and instructors attending together from different locations at a set time each week. So we may have, for example, a teacher being in the physical classroom teaching, but then there may be one or two students who we still have to accommodate via Zoom or accommodate them via Google Meet or WhatsApp call or Facebook conference room. We will still need to see how best we can utilize these approaches, especially when the situation arises, right? So it is being done. So we may have on the screen you're seeing live webinars, instant messaging, video conferencing, and virtual classrooms. These are all a part of synchronous learning. Let's hop over to asynchronous learning. This is a student-centered teaching method which is widely used in online learning. Its basic premise is that learning can occur in different times and spaces, particular to each learner. So this is where the learning takes place outside of the classroom, outside of the specific meeting time where the teacher and the students will meet. This may be that the teacher may ask the student to do some additional reading, to watch a video, to write a report, to take notes, right, to practice a concept, do some research, to reflect, to do documentary, watch a documentary or so on, right? But whatever it is that you ask the students to do, you have to ensure that it is part of your learning target, part of your learning objectives that you must uncover as you teach them this very valuable information, or as you teach them the content. So the big question is, how do you plan? How do I plan to meet to incorporate an asynchronous learning activity, or how do I incorporate synchronous learning in what I'm doing? It's pretty simple. One, all lessons must have lesson objectives, right? And we know that we have our general objective, that is our big idea, and then we have our specific objectives. Educators, when you write your specific objectives, you have to ensure that within the specific objectives, there are objectives that will be achieved outside of the meeting time. So basically, you're having 4 specific objectives, but 2 out of the 4 is when the student will meet outside of class, and that must be specific and detailed. Here is an example. Students, at the end of the lesson, students should be able to differentiate between verbs and nouns by watching a video and making notes. So you're being specific as to what is it, how will the child accomplish that differentiation. So you're saying at the end of it, how will they do it? And of course, you'd have said it. So then, as an educator takes up your lesson plan, they realize, oh, this is going to be the part wherein this is done outside of the lesson, right? So this would be the asynchronous approach, where it is done outside of a specific meeting time. This is being done by the student on his or her time outside of class. All right, so that's the first approach. Your lesson objectives, once again, when you look at the specific objectives, you must cater to the asynchronous part of it, where the student will do that specific objective outside of the class time. The second approach in planning for the asynchronous or the synchronous learning is that you need to tailor the content to ensure you achieve your target. Which do you prefer? Based on your content that you're doing, do you prefer to do difficulty in class or outside of class? So is it that you would prefer to accomplish a particular section of the content with the students while they are being synchronous? You're in the class with them from different locations, they're there with you. Or do you want to give them that difficulty, right, outside of class? So you send them to research, to make notes, to watch a video, to analyze, to do video analysis or text analysis or so on. You will need to decide on that. However, you must ensure that it's appropriate for age and cognitive level. And you may be saying, but if it is at the age level, then it should be at the cognitive level. No. Remember that we have students who are at the chronological age. So they are 13 years old, but really they can't comprehend lessons that are planned for 13-year-old. They can only facilitate or understand lessons planned for a grade a student who is age 8 or age 9. So you have to ensure that differentiation comes into the content as well, to meet the demands of the different students, as well as it is age and cognitive level appropriate for them. So you want to ensure that you're doing that. This is pretty much like the flipped classroom, and I'm going to be sharing that. I suggest it as a video, so you can go back and you can watch that. What's the flipped classroom? You can take that on too as you do your asynchronous or your synchronous learning. And finally, when planning, you have to think about the activities. As you plan, ensure you bear in mind the activities that must be done in class together and those that will be done outside of class. So if you have done the difficulty in class, what are you going to let them do outside of class, the asynchronous part of it, to help them to solidify what was done in class? Or if it is that you're going to be doing the easier part in class and you're sending them to do the difficulty, which is the asynchronous part outside of class, then you have to ensure that whatever it is that you're doing with them, it's like the enrichment. We know the 5E lesson planning, right? This the part about extended or enrichment activities. So you give them additional things that they can go outside of the class and be able to toy around with. But while they're toying around with it, it is actually learning that is taking place. You're actually helping them to solidify a content specific part, or to solidify a concept that you would have done with them, to further help them to see how this content or how this concept can be done outside of just what I told you, outside of just doing a role play. How else can you understand it outside of you being in the lab activity in class and you do the lab? How else can you get this done outside of a lab activity, right? So it's basically that you're putting the activity in different ways, the content in different ways, in different activities, to help the students to be able to grasp what is being done. So once again, when you're planning for your synchronous or your asynchronous, you have to look at your objectives, you have to look at the content, and you have to look at the activities that you're going to be doing. So it's basically synchronous, you're planning for this activity, this objective, this specific part of the content, this specific activity will be done in class synchronously. Or you're going to be saying, now that I've covered this part synchronously, this objective, this part of the content, this activity will help to solidify what I have done in class. So they are now going to go asynchronously outside of the class time to achieve this. And you must ensure, educators, that when you have done the asynchronous part of it, that when you meet them in the synchronous part the next time that you are going over this with them, you are calling on them to share, to explain, because you don't want to give students the idea that when I give you asynchronous activities to do, it's just for you to do, there is nothing there. So you must have an assessment, you must have a part in your lesson that you are pulling back the information that you send them to garner, that you either you're going to be marking it, you're going to be grading, you're going to be doing some discussion, so they know that they must do it. All right, now the ultimate goal in all of this is that whether you're going to go asynchronous or synchronous, it is to ensure that the concepts and the content are clearly understood and grasped. It cannot be, educators, that you just plan the lesson, you just have your objectives, you just have the content, just have the activities, because you want to use the terms loosely, because you want to say to your HOD or your vice principal or your principal that, hey, I know how to utilize asynchronous and synchronous activities, I know how to plan a lesson. No, the ultimate at all times is the learner. You're not doing this for a show. The only show you're doing it for is to show and demonstrate to your students that you are the master of the content area in your class. So you want to ensure that you plan accordingly to meet the needs of your students. I trust that this information, it's timely, it is also short and to the point, just to help you to understand, because for most part we would have been doing the synchronous and the asynchronous all along. It's just that the pandemic has opened up the can for us to know that these terms are there and it is part of what we do every time. Once again, thank you so much for listening, for joining. I trust that you have a great week as we start the summer term, that it will be a great one for you, one in which you will be refreshed, one in which you will go out to help your students as they close out this part of their school life for this grade, whatever grade they're in, you're helping them, that as they move forward, they would have grasped and learned. Also, remember to share this link, share this video with parents, with students, with administrators, with your fellow colleagues, and I trust that you'll be able to, if you have not yet subscribed, to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, and to leave your comment in the comment box. Thank you so much. God bless you all.